Hello, welcome to the Save Our Children podcast. We're your hosts, Becky and Bridget. Today, we have such a fun treat for you. We have Mom Claudia, her daughters, Claudia Andrea and Valerie, are three super talented women, and we are blessed to be able to chat with them today. Claudia has a YouTube channel called Her Soul Vacation, where she takes you around on all of her adventures, showing you how to connect to your soul, and be happy. Claudia Andrea released her first single, see, as we cut that out, featuring the Marine rapper called Fuera in early February. And her sister Valerie just released her first single, Duality, last week at the end of February. This is a powerhouse family right here. Can you guys each take a turn and give us your life journey and how you ended up in this place? And we'll start with Mom and go all the way down the family tree. Thanks again, ladies, for joining this. This will be fun.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. I'm Claudia, the mom. I came from Chile, South America in 1995. So in December of this year, it was a crucial moment for me because it marked half of my life in Chile and half of my life in the United States. So the very next day, I belong more to the United States than my native country. So it is an interesting feeling that I'm still digesting. And aside from that, I'm the proud mom of 5 children, one of them in heaven. And I am an interior designer by trade, but mainly I have become a solo female nomad. And that has been truly fulfilling my life. And it is allowing me to not find myself because I don't think I was ever lost, but to learn about myself, and I'm having the opportunity to make choices for me, and choices that will only affect myself like never before. My whole life since I was a teenager, all my decisions also affected my children. So unfortunately, I made some bad decisions that affected my children. And I want to say that I made some good ones too that allow us to be here all together. I am a learner. I will never stop learning. I'm always seeking to learn. I'm also seeking thrills in life. And I'm just throwing myself to life right now because it is the last half of my life. And I am going to live it happily. And I'm trying to figure that out. So that's me in a brief.
I love that. Thank you.
I love it because I'm not a nomad. I still have my 2 children, but like I ended up just recently quitting my job and not having another one. And it's been like the best 3 weeks of my whole life. And it does not impact my family. Like I'm not leaving them destitute and all that sort of stuff, but it really is like, all right, what am I going to do? What am I going to do today that isn't going to work? And that's for now, and we'll see what happens. But like, I resonate with that because it really is all right, what am I going to do for Becky? Because it's about time we probably do that.
Mm-hmm. True.
We want to go to Claudia.
Claudia.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Claudia Andrea. I was named after the best woman in the world, Claudia, my mom that you just met. And I'm originally from Chile as well. I came to the US when I was 10, and with my younger sister, who's not here, present in the video, not the one who's in heaven. And we were 8 and 10. We only knew how to say a couple things in English, so it was a lot of adventures that I remember as a youngin'. And as you can probably tell now, I definitely can pass for American, which I love this country as well. And I'm so proud to be here and to represent both of them. So I am now a single mom of 3. I have a daughter and 2 sons, and I live in Arizona. We started out in San Diego, California, which I love. And we feel so blessed that that's the part of the US that we ended up kind of growing up and learning in, because I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. Arizona is surprisingly really beautiful too. I have to say, because I know people here who love it as well.
I'm in Arizona. Beautiful.
But it's interesting, yeah, as my mom is talking about being a nomad, and then Becky's talking about a difference in changing your life. I moved to Arizona about a year ago, and not having family or friends here. And so it's been a cool kind of like self-reflective, transformative experience for me. So now I'm 36 and finally realizing the biggest dreams I've had since I was a little girl. I always say, I like to say, when you ask a child what they want to be as an adult, it's such a pure, beautiful intention that I think stays with us forever. And so I love to ask people that because I feel like it speaks to a point where you were a dreamer and you believed everything was possible and had no inhibitions. And so if you asked me that when I was little, it was to be a mom and to be a famous singer, I said at the time. And I would like stuff pillows under my dress and picture myself pregnant. And I would carry a baby doll everywhere, and I'd put it at the foot of my bed and pray that when I woke up in the morning, it was a real baby. I was like 6 years old, like no business taking care of babies. I would sneak, I remember as a 4-year-old, I would sneak into my cousin's room sleeping and pick him out of the crib and just hold him. So anyway, I just always very in tune with what I wanted. But for some reason, and I want to share this part for anyone watching whom it can touch, but just as a teenager, especially, and you kind of grow into your adulthood, you start kind of doubting those dreams and feeling not worthy, or feeling like you're not good enough, or it's too late. And so I'm really proud to kind of say that, you know, here's a single mom immigrant, 36 years old, and it's not too late for me to do what I want. Just like my mom is showing, right? That it's not too late for her to go on an adventure in her soul vacation. So obviously I must get that from my mom as well. In the spirit of, like she said, she loves learning. I do as well. We both like love meeting new people and tell me about your culture and, immerse me in it. And so I'm just enjoying life. And one of the biggest things of me, like pursuing these dreams, like you mentioned, I had my first song come out a couple weeks ago, and it's been my biggest dream. But the biggest part of that, I think, well, there's different aspects to it, but one of them, especially being a mom and a single mom, is to show my kids that anything they dream up is possible and that there are no excuses. And I say that's part of it because I also want to share, whoever wants to listen, share to them that it's not too late or it's not impossible. No resources, no money, no experience, and you can do it, So I'm really excited to kind of like be ignited in this journey. And I like to say, because performing is something that's been in my blood for forever, and I've done it in different aspects, and I do hosting on TV and acting, and I've been, dancing in music videos and commercials and things. And so for me, it's not about like, look at me, or like a vanity thing. It's like, look at me and see yourself. And I realized that, God gave me something that makes people feel comfortable with me so that they can see themselves in me and feel like they can come up and do whatever they want to.
Oh, love that.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. And I'm the baby sister. Oh, Valerie.
I love it.
My name. So a little bit about me. So I'm 24 years old, and I'm an operations manager by day and a musician by night. And I was born into contrast, and I grew up really early. And because of that, my whole life was a lot of centered around living a normal life despite the chaos, and how to still, deal with all the normal things that a kid deals with also all the crazy added family stuff that was going on. And so because of that, early on, I developed a lot of insecurities and limiting beliefs and stuff like that. And a lot of my journey has been healing and being an advocate for those with any mental health issues, and just being an advocate for, yes, you can have that, and you can totally 100% heal and be a light and be shiny and be going for it anyway. So that is what I am, like Andrea said, that is what, I come to symbolize for other people to connect and resonate with. This is an example of doing your dreams anyway, because growing up, I always loved singing. I would always Andrea, my bigger sister, she would like to video camera me, and I would always like bring the microphone or the pom-poms or like get up in special dresses. And so I love captivating people and giving them a good time for my, you know, bubbly, sparkly energy. And as I have healed from like my insecurities and my fear of failure and my limiting beliefs that I'm blah, 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 I've been able to kind of uncover that light in me again and really let it shine for the world to see. And so I wrote a song about duality, which, you know, is exactly about talking about there is light and dark. And I think right now in this world, we are so focused on presenting our best selves. And there's nothing wrong with presenting your best self, but it's not accurate. And it causes false premises in social media. It causes false expectations. And it causes you to feel like, dang, all these other people are doing this, this, and this. And I'm just kind of having a normal day over here, right? So my goal in music is just to open up and share, and not just to talk about it, but to move past it and talk about like what we learned and like what we're doing with it and everything, like, because you know, you don't want to just talk about it and leave it there. You want to kind of grow out of it and show. So my music portfolio is going to be a lot of, you know, hey, here's the authenticity of what's going on, and here is how to live the life of your dreams despite it. So in my spare time, I lately have been doing coaching for emotional intelligence workshops. And I'm also working with like different energy workers to be like a holistic life coach and everything, because being able to reflect people's light back to them is the most gratifying and fulfilling thing you could ever possibly do. So that's what I'm all about through music. And then also like just through like talking.
I love that too, just because we often talk on our podcast about being in alignment and connecting with everything, every aspect of what we do. We want to make sure it's in alignment with what we're doing. And yes, we're going to be brought with adversity along the way, but it's how do you shift out of that? How do you turn, whether it's good or bad energy, how do you change that frequency, and how can you shift? Even though on our podcast we're often talking about darker topics, especially when it comes to human trafficking, we're like, how can we switch from dark to light and really educate and be the shift? Because oftentimes people like to sit and complain, but it's like, what is that really doing for you other than being into the toxicity of it? So I love that.
I love that. Well, I mean, that's a reframing, right? Like we can take our victim stories and we can reframe them to become victor stories, right? And that's exactly what you guys do here. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you don't even have to go out into the world and tell people what to do. You just have to do you. Mm-hmm. Like I've had people, and it's still very weird to me, like old coworkers will say, yeah, I found my inner Becky today and I did blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I understand that as a complete compliment, but then it's also very like, are you sure you want to find that? Like that
Becky is very savage.
That seems a little rough. Are you sure about that? But no, like to just go out and be like, authentic. Here's who I am. This is what you're going to have, no matter whether I'm on a podcast or you find me at the store or I'm sitting with my kids. It's all the same person. And I hope shining light on that then allows other people to feel I'm going to be who I'm meant to be. And I don't want to be uncomfortable with that.
Absolutely.
Amen to that. I feel that for me, that was the main reason to even start a YouTube channel without knowing what I was doing and learning. It is a lot of work, and you guys know the things, even when you put all of the work, at the end, everything can fall apart when it comes to production and editing, all of that. But aside from that nobody knows and nobody sees, most people don't relate to it because they don't do it. For me, my main initiative and purpose to create my channel was for that one woman that I was once. And that one woman never had any knowledge of opportunities and that life could be better. And the life really wasn't so bad. I mean, bad things were happening, but if you understand that how you can get out of it, I mean, it may be so simple to you guys, but when you don't know that there are ways out, you just don't know. You just don't know. And you are not welcoming, but absorbed by the negativity, absorbed by the bills, absorbed by the criticism, absorbed by all of these stressors that we have as single parents or as women. So for me, I don't care if only one person watches or I have only one subscriber, because I'm there for her. Like in psychology, I remember going through some therapies and they would ask me to draw myself at 16 or to draw myself at my most tender age and to reconnect with that. And I want to be kind to that person because it feels so lonely, you girls. And this country is so amazing and you have so many tools available to you. All that you have to do is do this and you will find the answer of someone else that is feeling the same. But I didn't have that. I never had that. Internet? I don't know. Like I grew up in a third world country and I was, I don't want to play the victim, but I was abused. I have physical scars, you know, that I can show and tell the story. But aside from that, I just want to be there for that woman that I feel that even in these contemporary times, we can find her alone and suffering and drowning because you don't know that there's a better life. I didn't know RV existed. When I walk into a real life as an interior designer, like, how can this be? Bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, and 22 feet. How can this be? I can live like this. I don't need more. And you just quit your job and you perhaps realize, you know what? I don't need all that money. And I personally don't need all that clothes. I left a garage full of clothes that I may never have enough life to use all of that. What was I thinking? I wasn't thinking, I was feeling. I was buying this because I needed to feel good. And that will give me an instant good feeling, you know? So that's my purpose. And I'm never going to forget. Because it's part of me. And I want to be there for her. The one that is me today in this contemporary world. So
I love that because we often talk about the power of one. And as we always say to everyone listening and watching, you're going to get our real and raw emotions. So know that this episode, we have mom, daughters, and me, myself being a single parent of a daughter, and Becky is married with boys, but this episode is going to get emotional. So just throwing that out there now. So if you want to grab a tissue box, feel free to do so. But
this is nothing yet.
Kleenex now.
And that I love it because it's just real and raw. And these are conversations that we have to have. And I love the authenticity of it because even your daughter's hearing you say that. I know that raises some emotions too. And you being a mother, and we often talk on our podcast, the power of one, you never know who you're going to touch. So even if you talk to one person, that one person's going to tell somebody, and it just causes a ripple effect. So just even listening to you saying, even when we did our live, I know that before we had lost some connection, Claudia, even her listening to you and you talking about, I wasn't the perfect mom and I could only do with what I was given and I made the best of it. So I want to kind of go even down that road in that conversation of the journey of, we often talk about too, once we heal ourselves, then it changes for our children in the next generation. So going off of that, even just in childhood and from childhood to now adulthood, and I don't know who wants to take the questions first, but Claudia's like me, but okay. Yeah, we'll do it from the girl's point of view. So even Claudia, just listening to your mom say everything that she just said in your childhood till now, and you being a mother, and seeing it from a different perspective and knowing like you're doing your own healing and motherhood. can you just share even what listening to her and those emotions and how that makes you feel? Because I know oftentimes there's so many families who have the dynamic of, we can't talk about this, and it's taboo topics, and they aren't able to have these discussions. So I love the authenticity of even your mom just coming out and saying, like, I know I wasn't the best mom, but this is what I had to do, and this is what I was focused on to provide. So can we just go off of that conversation?
Yeah. And mom, if I'm about to get into something you don't want me to share, tell me, but I know you're pretty open and I'm not going to share anything intimate, but
wait, let me give you the freedom to say anything you want. I anything, the ugliest that you know. I have an answer for that. So go for it. Go for it.
Thank you. Well, it mostly just about things that affected you, but I mean, I'll say that I was tearing up earlier when she talked about what she was sharing. And I love that, like, first, I just want to acknowledge Becky and Bridget for the space and like inviting us and for everything you're doing. I'm so impressed with your hearts and your resilience and your desire to serve. And I can tell, like, when Valerie was talking about, sharing light and helping others, and my mom as well, like, I know that resonates with you so much because I feel that that's what you're all about. And so I just feel honored to share that, that in that same vein with you. But I want to say that, as my mom was sharing, you just feeling alone and all that stuff. I had a very vivid memory that I haven't thought about in forever, but when I was pregnant with my last child, his dad wasn't in the picture very much. And when my mom talked about her YouTube channel, I remember very specifically looking up on YouTube, pregnant and alone, to look for, there's got to be somebody, somebody who's done this before and let me see that they had a happy ending or that they got through it,
Yes.
And so it's so beautiful to think that you're doing that. And I think each one of us here can relate to, like, Bridget's desire to want to have this podcast, Becky's desire to have this podcast, Valerie's desire to do music and to coach, and my desire to be on Instagram Live having conversations and do music as well. It all comes from that because we've all felt alone, and we realize that that's the reason we're on this earth, is to love and connect. And that's why the idea and the memory of the Savior is so important, because he's felt every single pain and every single trial, and he chose to take it on for us. And so that's the biggest gift I recognize we can give anybody. And as I was going through, like, the hell of my divorce, I'm like, well, if I can help one person, tell them that I've been there, even if you can't fix what they're going through, but just to tell them that they're not alone is one of the most invaluable gifts that you can give anybody. And so I reflect, like, my mom is the best example of that for me. I always tell people she's like the female Job. Like, everybody's had like one hard thing in their life, and she's had all of them. Like she's been abused, she's been mistreated, she's gone through multiple divorces, she's lost a child, she's had a miscarriage, this is why I asked for your permission, Mom, because I'm like airing everything. She's lost her house, lost her job, and anyway, so all these things. And I had a miscarriage with my first pregnancy, and my mom was comforting me. And I'm like, Mom, wow, did you, because she mentioned we have a sister in heaven. She passed away when I was 4 on the day of her birth, minutes after she was born. And when I went through my miscarriage and my mom was able to be there for me, I'm like, wow, Mom, did you ever think that, like, when you were going through that 19 years later, you would be comforting your daughter as a mother going through something similar? And so I now, as a mom, recognize that these hard things that happen can serve me in comforting my children as they grow up. And if that's the case, bring it on. Like, if my kids go through a breakup and I can tell them I've been there and that gives them comfort, then let me go through this breakup. You know what I mean? And so that's given me a lot of comfort in the things that I go through. And I can say that I'm sure a big part of that example is my mom. But as Bridget was mentioning, of like me maybe seeing things with my mom and then how I parent now, one thing in particular that I recognize, and I've acknowledged this with my mom, is like when I was younger and I'd be telling my mom something and I felt she wasn't listening to me and it might hurt my feelings. And now I'm like, Mom, as a mom, especially as a single mom, you're trying to think of like, how am I going to make the next bill, or how am I going to, and I get it now. And so I try to tell my kids, like, give me 1 second and I'll give you my full attention, you know, but that's something I can't blame her for. Like, I think all of us can say that about our parents, right? Becoming parents now.
Well,
and yeah, and well, I'll just wrap that up with saying that, my mom, like my dad was very abusive to her, and I didn't know this until I started asking her about it. And it just gave me so much respect for her wanting to give me the space to have my own idea and perception of my dad without telling me all the things that hurt her so much. And then I started learning that she went without food so that we could eat and all of these things. So I just have so much love and respect for that. And I think it gives me more, I think we all say, you know, even our parents say, oh, when you become a parent, you'll understand. And it totally is like that. And so I just like try to give her grace as I think about all these things, and just respect for all the things that she's been through that have helped me to be a better person.
It's interesting you say that, because just, I know it was like 2 weeks ago, my mom, I've been in therapy for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, like just anxiety and getting all the things. And I didn't like flat out didn't have a real tough childhood, but I was the oldest. There was divorce, there was things. And so like emotional neglect sort of situation. And my mom finally said to me, am I the reason you go to therapy? And that was one of those, like, do I lie? Or do I flat out tell you that absolutely you're the reason I go to therapy? And I said, I was like, yeah, Mom, but I don't blame you for it. Like, I have to work through it because it still did happen. These things still were pieces of my story I have to fix. But now, as a 41-year-old mom of 2, and I have a son who is exactly me as a 13-year-old child, I understand why you're like, shut up. Like, I don't want to hear whatever nonsense you're going to tell me about. And again, she was a working mom. She had 3 kids. She had all these things. She was divorced, so she had to deal with my dad. And so I said, as a logical adult who is now a mom, I don't blame you for the way you did things. As a 13-year-old girl, where I blamed myself for the reason that you didn't pay attention or the reason that things went wrong, that's what I'm trying to work through. And I have, and I've gone through a lot. And the biggest thing for me is I can now parent my 13-year-old son the way I wish my mom would have parented me at 13, because I sit back and I say, what did I need to hear? And even if it didn't go off well that first little bit, it'll be like, I'll go back and be like, that didn't go right. And I'm sorry that I yelled at you, or I'm sorry that this went this way. Here is what I wish I would have told you, because I know that this is what you needed to hear. And so he just really needs to hear constantly that the stuff he's going through is perfectly normal. And I went through my whole life being anxious because no one ever told me that all of the stuff you went through is perfectly normal. And so I work really hard at, yes, being sad some days is normal. Yes, feeling awkward is normal. Yes, that whatever other 13-year-old drama is going on is normal. And so for me, and I love hearing the validation from all of you guys, that it's really important to love yourself, to be able to heal yourself. And like you said, give grace to your parents, because they didn't know, and how many of our kids are going to end up in therapy anyway, because what we're intentionally not trying to do. But again, you don't know until you know. And that was a great point.
Sometimes, go ahead.
I think it's, well, when you look at someone's life, like, you know, they always say, like, walk a mile in their shoes and then judge, right? And, you know, when you look at the traumas that your parents have endured, and especially in terms of time and culture, how much we have evolved. I mean, 50 years ago, there were so many things that just didn't get talked about. There were so many support systems for parents and children that just didn't exist. And then you add on being in a third world country on top of that during a time of dictatorship. I mean, going into family history, my mom's great-grandfather at 5 years old witnessed his parents get murdered. So can you imagine the amount of trauma that is passed down to family lines. A 5-year-old witnesses something extremely traumatic and unsafe, then continues to build. His son was extremely abusive. My grandfather abused my mother and her mother, and the environment was toxic. And so when I look at that, and I've told this to my mom, it's amazing you turned out as good as you did, honestly. Because, you know, when you really sit down, I mean, because it's so easy to judge and just be like, oh, that wasn't that, or that, you know, people, there's always going to be critics, right? But that's easy. It's easy to criticize. It's not easy to understand. And so many people in this world will criticize single moms or whatever for their imperfections instead of support them or help them or provide structure. They just point and judge. And that's like, it just like, oh my gosh, give them tools, people. Give them compassion. That's your daughter. That's your sister. That's, you know, someone that gave birth to your children. So absolutely. I mean, I will, you know, yeah, I was born into contrast and whatever, but like that contrast has given me the ability to see and to understand and to forgive, because I get it. I didn't receive what I was supposed to receive at times. And then I turn and be abusive sometimes too, because that's what I learned. And I understand the shame and the guilt of, oh my gosh, I just did what was done to me. Holy cow, ouch. I never wanted to do that, but I did because that's what I learned. I've been there, and I'm honest with myself enough to be like, I've been there. And when you're able to be honest, you're able to give forgiveness and compassion and permission to change. Because I think that's another thing that we don't do enough in this society is give permission to change. Oh, that person made a mistake 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Oh, they always do this. They're never going to change. How unfair that we do that to humans. So absolutely, like the whole thing that we're doing here is talking about it, like really talking about it, like not just scratching the surface, but like, let's be really wise, intelligent beings. And let's understand how you got there, because at our essence, we are love. And in the absence of fear, love arises.
Mic drop.
Right?
That's back to your mom and what
there is a part, sorry. There is a part to all of this, and I feel I am saved because my children are so emotionally mature. I feel like a child when I hear them talking, because I never reached that level of emotional maturity in my life. I didn't have the tools. I grew up in abuse and all of that. Whatever. I didn't have it. And now I listen to my daughters, like, I feel a peace of mind because they get it. I didn't get it. So I went through the wrong route. You know, you get to the same place, but I took the long way, and the course what everybody else go straight to it. No, I didn't do it that way. I never did anything easy. But there's another side to this. I just turned 54, and I think I'm the closest to my mom. My mom wasn't a nurturing mother. She was very neurotic, and of course, because she went through the abuse and, you know, the cycle. And we're talking me third world, but she was even further behind, you know? So yeah, no tools, none of that. But today, I tell my mom, and I guess I'm thankful for feeling this way, because I'm going to put myself on the ground and let my children walk on me. I will do that. You know, I'm not dumb. I get it, but I'm going to let them tell me everything I did wrong. I'm going to soak it. I'm going to hear it. I'm going to welcome it. It isn't going to be easy. It hasn't been easy, but it doesn't matter. As a parent, it doesn't matter. Excuse me for what I'm going to say. I don't matter. And the point that my children are priority, and I get it. Like, I am not suffering the same. I'm not in the same place anymore. Therefore, I can give more of my children more of me to my children and ask for forgiveness and do the healing. And honestly, they can tell me anything. You know why? Because I cannot. To my mother, I can reach out to her and say, Mom, this and this hurt me. And all that I need to say, all that I need to hear from her is, I'm sorry. That's it. That's it. She doesn't need to explain it to me, but she would never do it. She would say instead, I don't remember that. Oh, you're just making it bigger. Or like denial. That's even hurts bigger, further, because there's no healing. But I have to come to a point to let that go. My mom is never going to reach that point. I am always going to love and respect her. Not the way that it could be, and I recognize that, but I am doing all that I can with the love that she gives me, like, I don't know. My mom is, she suffered a lot. So I am giving her the space to be the way she is. But at the same token, not letting her lack of intimacy in a way, maybe she doesn't know intimacy. And that doesn't mean sex. It means getting closer to someone, being vulnerable, being naked in front of your children, and let them do it. And once that is done, let's talk about it. Let's forgive each other. Let me tell you, if you want to know more, let me tell you. Please, because at the end, all of us here, the 5 of us, we're all women. And we're all going to reach the same stages. And we're all going to feel similarly. Mom, I understand you. And I love you. But she needs to give a little as well. So you know what I mean? But from my perspective, for my healing, I need to let that go and focus on my children and the healing that can happen. You don't always receive the healing from your parents. I know I won't, and it's okay, but I can focus on my children and move on, which is hard, but I'm working on it.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, one thing that I wanted to point out that you said is tools, right? Like, look at what you were given at 8 years old and look at what I was given at 8 years old. Right? Like, you were being called a whore by your father. You witnessed too much violence and instability. At 8 years old, the judge was like, she needs to go to therapy. And I started working with mental health professionals at such a young age. And so when you say, oh my gosh, she's so much more mature and I feel like a kid, let's be understanding of the circumstances here of look at the tools that I was given so early on. And let me just really be an example of what someone could be with tools. You know what I mean? Like with trauma and tools, you can be all right? But with trauma and nothing else, it's like, oh man, like compassion, like I wish someone would have given that to them. But the thing that I think is cool, Mom, is that even after all of these years, you're still able to find that peace and like find that inner peace and heal on so many deeper levels.
That's true.
Yeah, we often talk about too on our podcast, like the older generations compared to like our generation, and the whole hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, and just the whole, it comes back to ego, and it comes back to being so stubborn and stuck in their ways that they think that they know it all. And so now, like, even just listening to you talk, like, it's any mother's natural nurture instinct to protect their children. So you hearing everything that you're saying, especially listening to your daughters and seeing both sides of it, is truly amazing, because you say how you had no tools, but they had tools. And just listening to them talk and how they've healed, like, you are a part of them, and they carried that in their soul. So they have that resilience. No matter what, everything you were going through, you never burden your children. You always had that compassion and that love, and you can see everything that was passed down especially when it comes to that fire and resilience. Like your daughters are a model of that. And you, even still till this day, even trying to mend that relationship with your mom and knowing that, yes, there's boundaries and that, you know, that isn't going to be as picture perfect as you want it. But even just as women, we see that on a daily basis, especially with technology and social media, and there's just this whole facade. So it's nice to have this conversation openly and break down the barrier and say, no, let's get real about it, because we know that everyone's going through something. You're not alone. And I know in my family, there was a lot of domestic violence and alcohol abuse and all of that. It happens in every family, and no family is picture perfect. In fact, for our family, my parents were the only ones married, especially on my dad's side. And so we always were treated different because they would call us the Kardashians of our family. They always would say that we were too good, because my parents always tried to shelter us from the toxicity of it. And we never understood that until we got older, but they never were like, oh, you can't go with your aunts and uncles, or you can't go with your cousins or do this, because this is what they were into, whether it was like the drugs, the alcohol, or the violence of it. My parents did the best that they could, and had to know that no matter what they instilled in us, when we left that door and stepped out of there, not with them, we carried that, and that was our decision. And my parents always made it a point that no matter what we went through, they would always be there for us, but there was lessons along the way. So it was our decision of whether it came to dating and whatever relationships we got into. My parents always made it a point to kind of stay out of it, to learn, for us to learn the lesson and kind of grow from it. But they gave us advice along the way. But like, even for me, being a single mom and having my daughter at a young age, I had her at my parents' house all by myself and in their bathroom. That's a whole nother for another day. But yeah, I had her by myself at my parents' house. And that moment of my life, actually, in everything I've gone through, a lot of people, I don't really talk about it, and they don't know everything that I've gone through. But even just like hearing your mom talk, it's like, that's who makes you the woman you are today. And it just builds that character and that strength to keep pushing forward, especially when you do feel alone or you don't have anyone. And so that honestly just gives you that fire and resilience to make you the woman you are today, and even want to help others to know, like, no, what if that was me? This could happen to any of us. We could be homeless tomorrow. Like, we don't know what life's going to bring.
That's very true.
For me, it's actually a really cool thing to watch you guys, because it's like a generation past me. Because my mom, I sat with my mom a year ago for like 3 hours, and it's like, all I needed to hear you say is that you were proud of me. I've never heard you say that you were proud of me. And the closest that my parents ever came, even in that night when I sat across the table and said, this is what I need to hear, my dad said, well, I'm proud of all three of you. It's like, that's not what I'm asking for, because that just negates the whole thing. And so being able to, like, I left there proud that I could go to her and say, this is what I needed. But at the exact same time, I was so incredibly hurt that, like, you can't even, and it was super vulnerable for her. Like, that was a hard place for my mom to be in, because they don't talk about that stuff. She grew up, like Bridget was saying, grew up in the era of, you just don't say things like that, and we don't talk about love, and we don't do any of that. And so the nice thing is that by me growing, it's very slowly getting to wake her up. She now, like, I never hear I love you, never heard I love you, never whatever. Now we go to lunch, she's able to say I love you first. That's a huge thing, which means that that's what I have done. I've broken that trauma, and that's what I've been able to figure out. But to watch you guys, it's like, dang, you guys are my boys. Like, they will have things they have to deal with because of me not being whole when this all started, but they'll be so strong when they come out the back end of this, because I did the work, just like your mom. And again, it's really cool to watch the dynamics. It's like, All right, cool. This is a generation from now, and I'm excited for this.
Anyone?
I also wanted to,
Go ahead.
oh, I just wanted to add that, you know, kids are going to have this stuff even if you're whole. You know?
Totally. Truth.
If I may, I wanted to ask my mom to share a little something that I think would be interesting for people listening while we're kind of in the topic of, Valerie mentioned you growing up in a dictatorship. Now, we don't need to get into like the politics of it or whatever, but I think it's so powerful to hear your perspective of that experience as a kid, if you don't mind just sharing a little bit of that.
Yeah, so I grew up I was born in 1968. In Chile, we have, what is it called? Civil coup in 1971. And my father was a policeman. The police force in Chile is very similar to the military. So they are required to act as a Marine. So my father was gone. And at that time, I was very young, and I lived in 1973. So I was about five years old. And I lived in the capital of Chile, Santiago. And it was a military coup. The military took over the government and decided to kill the civilians. And so that's when they killed the president. They say he suicided himself. He committed suicide, but he was killed. And the military took over. And since a moment on, September 13, 1973, Chile became a dictatorship. And I was about 5 years old. And during that time, my father was gone, my mom was with all of us. We lived in the capital, and we will have to make, to buy a little piece of bread like this, about 3 hours in the line. And I remember my mom will hang the piece of bread in the middle of the room. And I don't know if we were poor or something, but it was a very humble environment. And I remember I was not to touch the bread. So I would walk around the bag, smelling the bread, like a dog smelling around it. That's all I could do. And suddenly they were like, bombs, they're throwing bombs. And so we will have to run. And I remember as a child, we will hide under the bed with pillows on our faces because they bomb with chemicals or whatever. And there were shotguns and we were hearing violence. And then the next morning, all quiet, and people will walk out and you will see blood on the streets and the mess that had happened the night before. So I grew up under the dictatorship, and close to 1980, I was a teenager, and I never realized until now that I am in the United States that what an impact that was. I marched for it was between the yes and the no. The no, it was no more dictatorship. And the yes was, let's keep this dictatorship. So I marched for the no. And I remember I was 13, maybe 14, 16. I don't remember, but marching with everybody with the no. And no, we gained democracy in 1980 in Chile. So that's still kind of new, you know. But I remember that I wasn't able to speak what I thought, and the people that did would disappear. So I am having a really, really hard time right now because I'm feeling those feelings, and I feel I'm reviving. And I think that's one of the reasons I took off, especially left California, because it's affecting me. It's affecting me more than I thought it would, like psychologically, emotionally, my memories, like I can't live in oppression. I rather die defending my freedom than living in oppression. It is a horrible, like everything that you guys have experienced is so familiar to me. And it's like, I don't want to relive that. I didn't come to the free country to live not free, to die not free. I can't do that. And I will not do that. If I have to give my life, I will.
I wanted to, thank you, Mom. I wanted her to share that because I know your audience. And I think that sadly, those stories are not being heard as much as they should be. And I can kind of wrap this around to everything we're talking about, right? Like the example my mom is to us as children, and the way that like Valerie and I feel, you know, independent and powerful and confident because of these things. But then also like I could even wrap it up to my song and why I felt convicted to speak on and mention certain things that people are scared to talk about. And just like being proud to be an immigrant and being proud to have this history and being proud to have a mom who's been through all this stuff. These are things that a lot of people don't recognize and this is the blessing in all the trials, right? Is we get to see what we went without or what we had to go through, and then why we cherish being in this country and having the freedoms that we have, the rights that we have, the privileges that we have, the voices that we have. And I just want to say, like, another ode to my mom and the things that she's taught us, which is so funny because before 2020, my mom had a little bit of strong political opinions. I never cared about politics. Come 2020 comes and I'm watching like a news briefing or whatever. And I feel like it was like half God and half intuition. It was like, there's more to this story. Like, look into it. Like, it's not what you're seeing on TV. And then I go to my mom, she's like, yep, I've been trying to tell you. and then, but the beautiful thing that I want to point out as we're talking about the dynamics of our family is all of a sudden, like Valerie, my other sister, Paula, and we never talked about politics. We never talked to, like, we probably thought it was crazy when my mom talked about certain things or whatever. Then all of a sudden we're sharing what's going on in the world, and we all happen to be in alignment and feel the same passion. And I was like, wow, that speaks volumes to like how my mom, and the thing that my mom pointed out, I was like, I never had to tell you guys, you have to think this way, or this is the right thing and wake up or whatever. But because of her example and because of the way that we grew up, recognizing like what feels right and what feels wrong and what's freedom and what's oppression and what's being threatened, we all kind of came to that place together. And so I thought that was so cool. And I think it spoke a lot to the way she raised us, but then also like what she experienced. And I'm really passionate about sharing these immigrant stories in particular, because bless their hearts. There's so many people growing up in this country who have no idea how good they have it, who have no idea what the things that they should be holding on to before it's too late. And if we can share more of these stories and hear like people who are alive today saying they went through this as opposed to like in a history book, I'm hoping that'll be more impactful, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love you. I love you for sharing that. And thank you, because you actually took me into the next direction of where I was going with questions, alignment. But really quick, even just going off of that, before we get into more questions, that's one thing that we often try to remind people of is being present. And just even so many people are arguing over whether it's a mask mandate or the whole jab, not jab. And it's like, just stop and think that you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't know if you pass away tomorrow. And so just remembering that, to be thankful and grateful for the time you have on earth, and how are you making an impact every single day, and what energy are you putting out? And so that's one thing that we often talk about, is just being grateful that we woke up today and you're alive and we have food, we have water, we have a roof over our head, where some countries, even with human trafficking across our border, we have children getting raped as we speak. We have kids getting kidnapped, used and sold over and over. And so many people are arguing about the stupidest things. And it's like, no, at what point is enough? And everyone takes a stand and comes together in unity and realizes, like, you're all fighting for the same thing. At the end of the day, when you step back and you realize that these, either political system, the Democrat, Republican, they don't care. It's all fed by money and they're all puppets. So just remembering to really step back and say, am I going to let these people who don't care about me really change and affect my daily lives? Or families have been ruined, jobs have been lost, friendships, like we've seen it and what it's done to humanity in general. And people have lost the ability to show compassion. And as far as even just the unsheltered community and seeing all the homeless people out on the street. So just remembering to step back and be present in all of that. But tying back into your guys' music And even as your mom got to hear both of you hit the charts and kind of make your music debuts, if we can go into, let's start with Claudia. If we can go into even as you talk about, I know you're big on pushing the immigration side of it and giving that point of view and that perspective. If we can go into your song, Fuera, and what that means to you, and then we'll just go in a circle and end with your mom and just tie it to how even seeing you as a mother, seeing what your daughters are doing today on their journey.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So like I said, I've been wanting to do music for a long time. And then you sit down and you think about like what kind of music. And I recognize that I'm a very sentimental and very intentional person. And I also recognize that I get that from my mom. I think about like, it's so funny, Mom. I don't know if you remember when Paula and I were younger and we'd like try on your clothes. We'd be like, can we have this when you die? And I think one of the reasons we said that was because my mom, I feel like she was always talking about like, when I die, please remember that I love you. When I die, please remember this. When I die, please get together with your siblings. Like it was so like, it wasn't like a gory or like a negative tone. She was just very thinking about her legacy and thinking about tradition and unity and everything. And then she also instilled a love later in life for me of poetry and music, like really, lyrically rich music with the people that she listened to. And so, Mom, you don't know this, but I think as in honor of your birthday recently, I was listening to Silvia Rodriguez, who's a Cuban singer, her favorite, and I just have memories of her listening to him. But and then I'm picking up Pablo Neruda, who is one of the world's most famous poets of all time, and he happens to be from Chile. So anyway, so it's interesting how, I could have thought, what if I started doing music when I was 20, or like the prime time where like the industry would say is you should do it. And I think, no, like it's really powerful to do it at this age now with the maturity that I have, with the confidence that I have, with the intentions that I have. So in this time, I talk about 2020 and waking up to this stuff, I got really involved where I started working as a marketing director for a public figure who was going to these rallies, and I was helping to organize them. And I got to meet all these cool people who are making a difference and trying to speak out against corruption. And so I really felt impressed to kind of give, and I felt like there was a part of it that people weren't talking about. And how powerful would it be for a Latin immigrant who's a female to come talk about it in this space where we hear more masculine kind of aggressive takes on what's going on, right? And it's needed, right? Like Bryson Gray, the Marine rapper, Topher, we need them. We need, like, because we've been asking, where are the men, right? So here they are, like, yeah. And they're like, no, this is not okay. And the president shouldn't be doing this and this and that. So we need that. I love it. But I'm like, hey, maybe, as a feminine take on it, I can share. And then I recognized, as I started doing the song, things kind of just fell into place. And it's not until now that the song is out, the music video is out, people are giving feedback. And I'm like, dang, there was so much like intention wrapped up in it that I didn't even recognize. And so I think just the energy of the intention somehow came out in the lyrics or the way it was presented or whatever. And what I mean by that is, of course, there's lyrics in there, right? And I say, I'll take this opportunity to kind of translate because people have been asking me. So, initially, the song starts out with talking about a relationship, a romantic relationship, and like the honeymoon stage of it, right? Like everything's so good. And then all of a sudden the lies come out and the cheating and the stealing or whatever. But I kind of turned it into mentioning some things that are happening in corruption in the government. So I say like mentiras, which is lies, right? And then I say like roba de empresas, which means stealing from businesses. And I said Cuba, frontera, the border, la gasolina, gasoline. Quieren que niños sean niñas. They want boys to be girls. Mira este estado fatal. Like, look at this horrible state we're in. Mi gente, ¿qué es lo que dice el chacal? El chacal is a figure in this very popular TV show that originated in Chile called Sábado Gigante that every Latin person knows. And he was like this kind of like grim reaper that would come in and take people away when they like were, it was like a talent show and people, the crowd didn't like them. So the crowd would go, fuera, like, and out, like, get out of here. And for me, it was like, oh, this is fun. And I can tie in my culture. But now I'm like realizing this is my take on like a freedom song, is like, yeah, you can attack the government and yeah, you can say freedom, freedom. But my take is like, let's talk about what's going on, but let's party, let's celebrate life. Like, and then when you have things in front of you that you don't like, whether it's like a bad relationship or corruption in the government, get it out of your life. Y fuera, you know, like you don't have to tolerate that. And so the other part of the chorus is no vale, which means like, no, it won't do. It's not good enough. It has no value. And so, so I didn't kind of see it that way until after the project was done. And I'm like, dang, like I have a very optimistic point of view in general. And so I was like, oh, this was like my optimistic way to say, let's address the nasty stuff. And then let's remember that you have every power to say no, to not participate, to get it out of your life. And so I actually want to start this, I don't know, kind of campaign or try to get people involved in sharing stories of like, what are you saying y fuera to in your life? What are things in your life, right? Like your job or a relationship or the government, that it's time. It's like, let's be done. Let's cut ties, get it out of my life. Because I think ultimately, I keep saying the lyrics from Bob Marley's Redemption song, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. That's like at the core, I think, of everything I do. When people are talking about the, you know, this president is the reason my life sucks, or this president's no, like you have every right to every chance to feel empowered to change your perspective, your reality, and then go in with that and help to serve others. So ultimately, I mean, you guys know it's like a fun dancing song. But I was pretty proud once I sat back and looked at it, I was able to bring in this stuff, but not make it negative and nasty, and still remind people like we can still celebrate life and let's focus on the good while we address the bad.
Yeah, it's such a fun video and song. I love it.
Thank you. I love that you love it.
If we can go to Valerie and go into duality and that your whole journey.
Beautiful. Well, it's actually funny. I started writing the song in December of 2021. After I had finished a couple other songs that was like, they need a little something else, but I don't know what it is. And so I'm just going to kind of start a new project. And I was using GarageBand. And so I was just kind of playing around with different instruments that were available and kind of seeing what I was vibing with. And I struck some chords and in the piano. And I had already had some lyrics that I kind of wanted to bring into that. And so that's kind of like technically how the creation came to be, but like emotionally behind it, I had just received some positive feedback at work from the vice president of operations. We were in a meeting with the CEO and she gave me a positive shout out to him, which was so amazing. And she said, you know, hey, Valerie is rarely seen without a smile on her face. And that's so true. I am really seen without a smile on my face. I am intentionally that way because I believe that you get to be what you want to see in the world, right? And so I like to be happy and to shine, you know, kindness. But the night before, I like cried my eyes out going to bed. You know what I mean? I wake up, I have puffy eyes in the meeting, and I'm like, you know. And at that moment, I felt really inauthentic receiving that feedback because it's like, yeah, I am smiling because I choose to be positive, absolutely. But I also want to let you know that, like, I just cried my eyes out, and that, like, I'm like really trying to be positive, you know what I mean? And kind of those moments, I've been in those moments a lot in my life because, you know, I've always tried to be happy and make other people happy and be a light and be another reason that someone doesn't feel as crappy or whatever, you know. But I've also received feedback from people that I manage that look up to me like, oh, Val, I could never see you frustrated. I'm like, oh, well, that's not good because I get frustrated a whole heck of a lot. And if you don't think that your leaders get frustrated, well, then you don't have a really realistic idea of what success looks like, because then you're going to get frustrated. You're going to think, well, the people that I look up to don't feel this way. And so there must be something wrong with me. No, you know what I mean? And so duality is about acknowledging that there are human moments and what you get to do in order to be what you want to be. And you know, and also at the same time, it's okay just to hold yourself and just be whatever you are in that moment. And then it's also okay to know that like the strong people that you look up to, like, have their things that maybe you don't see. And here's a little bit more insight into that, you know what I mean? And, you know, going deeper into duality, the duality is the balance between light and dark. And we tend to associate darkness with evil. But why? Why do we do that? When we put a seed into the ground, we put a seed into darkness, and that's where growth happens. When it's dark at night, that's where it's peaceful. That's where we can be calm enough to listen and receive things. And so oftentimes we want to say, oh, darkness is bad. No, darkness is a different form of growth. Like we said kind of on the podcast, how helpful is a flashlight on a sunny day? Right. And so there are importance to diversity, right? And so here, you know, you guys are very conservative, and so you guys have perspectives on different people and lifestyles and everything. And I'm saying diversity is good. You know, diversity is good, and we can learn from people who are born as boys and don't feel like boys. And we can learn from those people, and we can have compassion and learn from them and grow and evolve as understanding and compassionate human beings when we admit that there's duality, and there's nothing wrong about duality and diversity.
Thank you for that.
This kid speaking the truth. Valerie, is so interesting what you just said, because throughout my life, I have felt that I never had the right to be upset. Like being upset, like with my partners, it seemed like, no, I don't know, maybe I'm awful when I'm upset, but I feel like I can never had the feeling that it was wrong for me to be upset, that I couldn't feel that way. So I agree with Valerie, you know, feeling happy or feeling sad, they're both very validating feelings that we must learn how to digest and let it be and let it go. Like when my daughter died, it is difficult to talk about it even 30-something years after. But when she died, the first feeling that I felt besides a broken heart was that I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Like people would engage me and then look away. And I get it. I get it. What can you say to someone who has to go back home without a baby to a room with a crib and baby clothes and breasts that are overfilled with milk, and they hurt because you don't have a baby to give the milk to? I did nurse other babies when this happened. So I could never feel it. I could never feel it because I would make other people uncomfortable. So through the years, I have cried by myself, and I have screamed by myself, and I have gone crazy by myself because I couldn't do it with someone else, and I couldn't give that pain to someone else. It is a heavy, heavy load that I don't wish in my worst enemy. I don't want any other woman to ever suffer that. But for those who have suffered that, I feel that I can be there. You know, I feel that some part of the value of me losing a child is that I'm a few of the women that I can understand another woman who has lost a child. And it has happened. And at that moment, I am not afraid to be there. I'm not afraid to look at her face. I'm not afraid to come running to her and say, I'm sorry. This will never change. After 30-something years, you will still feel sorry. You will still miss your baby, and you will still wonder. And I'm sorry. But
you're fine. I wish I could go to the screen and give you hugs right now.
But you know, one of the things that I haven't shared much is that in 2019, I went back to Chile, and every time I have a chance to go back to her burial area, I have found it full of weeds and broken concrete and abandoned. Her memory is abandoned. Like how you people, the ones that you are there, the ones that you can just walk to the cemetery and clean it up, how did you let it be? How did you let it be? So the last time I said, you know what, I'm taking her with me to the United States. I don't know, I don't care if I find a rock, I'm gonna take it. I want to move on, I want to find closure. I can't come to Chile just to clean the cemetery, you know, I can't do that. I want to move on, and I want her to be with me where she belongs. And then I know this is just a memory. There's nothing of her in this world. But I wanted closure, so I did some investigating. And I went to the cemetery, and they gave me the book of life. I'm not lying to you if it's like 36 inches by 24. And I started looking for the day when she died. And that was the only way that I discovered that they lied to me. And she didn't die for the reasons they told me. So it is so difficult to, after 30 something years, to learn that, and to, you know, you still haven't worked those feelings. And how do you, on top of that, work the fact that you were lied to? And how do people do that? You know, why can't they say, I made a mistake, I'm sorry? You know, it is so difficult. So anyway, that was just to say how it is okay to receive somebody's pain. It is okay for us to let them be angry or let them be upset, because those feelings will vanish, but they won't go away if you don't let them be. So anyway, that was to talk about Valerie, how she shared about, you know, the dark side of things. We should be open to you dark side, you know, because not many of us are going to allow you to tell us about your dark side, and your dark side is real. It's real. So that's the one thing. But the other one thing that I want to address is how proud I am of my children, my 36-year-old daughter, my 24-year-old daughter, that are creating regardless, and they're going like this, you know, through life. Let me come and show you my artistry. Let me give you my creativity. Let me give you music. Let me give you dancing. Let me give you something positive and something to think about. Gosh, I feel like, what did I do to deserve this wonderful woman? Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here, still alive, to mend the things that I have done wrong, to create memories, to enjoy my grandchildren, to hear my daddy calling me and say, Mom, I love you, I miss you. I win. You know what? You stabbed me with a knife. You punched me on the face. You kicked me on the floor. When I was crying and asking for help, you kicked me more. Look at this now. Look at the fruit. Look at this gorgeous woman. Look at this. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I am going to survive. And you know what? If you're watching, thank you. Thank you for making me tough. And if you're alone and you're suffering like me, like you heard, keep fighting, keep fighting. You're gonna win, because you know what? It's true. Love always wins, and the truth will always prevail. I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to fear. Bring it on. I'm ready. And by my children, you know what? You have to walk through me to get to my children, because that's my treasure in life. And I will never, never surrender. Never. And you shouldn't either. So anyway, I wanted to say that.
Woo, that's my mama.
I love it. That's a mama bear. I love it.
Yes.
Claudia has all her emojis right by her for those of you who are listening and can't see the video.
Oh, how cute.
She's holding up some hearts. Going off of that and going into even women supporting women, that is important to have. A support system is the biggest thing that any woman can have. And we live in a society where it's so materialistic, and so many women don't, I would say, value themselves just because of social media and the way that the culture has made it. So I would say we often see that so many women feel that they have to sell themselves, or sugar daddies is a thing, sugar mamas is a thing. And so just knowing, even I want to get everyone's perspective on the culture and even how you feel as women, and if you've ever, how you deal with women, and if you've ever felt where you were alone and you didn't have that woman's support, because women are often feel like there's a competition, or they can't be I cannot talk. They can't be their authentic self because there's such a facade on social media, or that you have to, in order to be loved or be the perfect trophy wife, or whatever label society puts with the fake butts, the boobs, all of that, and just that whole image. So if we can just go in a circle, whoever, Becky, you want to start, and then we'll go around.
Yeah. I I don't know who's where on what page.
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll
everybody's different. I always feel bad because I'm probably looking in the wrong spot when someone's talking, and then you rewatch it and you're like, where are you looking, Becky? That's totally not on the screen. Anyway, I actually think I give credit to much of my upbringing of being alone. Like I went to Catholic school, and when I was little, I had maybe 15 kids in my class, and I was absolutely not that person who would join the cool crowd. I know it's hard to believe. But it was really I'm not going to do what you'd want to do. I'd rather go sit by myself against the wall and be by myself. And I'm cool with that. And at 13, was I cool with that? No, it hurt. It wasn't fun. It wasn't the way you wanted it to be. But because I was able to figure out how to be by myself, that I was able to figure out how to be by myself. And I can stand strong by myself today because I was already through all of that. And I get to be able to do that and show my boys, this is how, you know what, it's fine if you don't have those friends, because you get to be a much stronger individual because of that. And I actually saw my younger son, a couple of his friends wanted to change something at recess, and he's like, no, I don't want to do that, and took his football and walked away. And I was like, that's my boy. Like, there you go. Because that was hard. That was hard to not be liked. And that was really cool. So you start to see it come through. But I think there is a huge, stigma, problem, something, I don't know, with the fact that we don't talk about not being okay, or we don't talk about, because all of us grow up in some level of anxiety, trauma, depression, whatever it is. And we never want to talk about it. And we never want to say, I've been through that. I feel the same way. I had that situation. My parents were divorced. My mom did this. My dad was this. I moved here. Whatever it is, we never want to talk about it to make it normal. And I think we are now talking about it. I think we're starting to make these conversations normal. And with that, we get to a place where other people see your light. And I'm going to give my example that I gave Valerie on your live that we did. I've said it on here a couple of times, but I came up with this analogy. I'm sure I didn't come up with it, but I'm going to take credit for the time being until someone can prove me wrong. Just kidding. But I have this analogy that if you're in a dark room, we get this darkness thing. And darkness, again, doesn't have to mean evil. It just means unknown. It means dark. It means but even if it is evil, you can't uncover it until we get some light in there. And for people who are healing and standing strong and fighting the fight and doing this stuff, you literally are the person in the corner holding a birthday candle. And it may seem like the most minuscule little flame that you have out there, and you can't see anybody. The room is still dark. All you see is your hand with the candle, but every single person in that dark room can see you. And you are now the light for them to come over, and they can make their way and they can light their candle off of you. And now it's two of you standing there. And the more people come to light their candle off of your light and love and brightness, the brighter the room gets. And I really, really feel that that is what we are doing to this earth. We are healing ourselves, which heals our parents and it heals our children, because that is how we're going to get through all of this, is literally by that tiny little candle that we keep holding. And I think that that is so, so important to remember, that you may feel like you're doing nothing, but someone's going to say, I found my inner somebody and I'm going to go do whatever. And we've got to keep moving that along. So keep making yourself strong, because that really is what's going to change the world. It's a long-winded way of answering.
Love it. Let's go to Claudia.
Okay. Yes. So, the women thing and dealing as a parent. So, I kind of, when you started talking about like women seeing things as competition, I know this has been my mom's experience, and I'm willing to guess that Valerie's had experience in this too, because we like genuinely want to connect with people. And I've experienced a lot of women like don't know how to take that, and they think it's fake, or they, anyway. So I grew up like even at elementary school, asking the girls if I could play with them, and they'd say no. And I think later, maybe, I don't know if it was a jealousy thing or whatever, but I ended up going to play with the boys. And I was reflecting on this last night, because I made a really good friend through Instagram who has the same experience, where we're like, both have had close male friends, partly because we felt like girls were too much drama, or like we were treated that way because we're like happy and smiling to everybody, and for some reason some women think that's fake, and they or see it as competition or whatever. Anyway, so I started to not take offense to that, and to not, let it get to me, and just like pray for them. The favorite phrase that I adopted when I heard it as an adult is bless your heart, bless their heart. Because I'm like, my approach is kill them with kindness, and like sometimes I want to be so annoyingly kind that like I bug them, but they can't say anything about it. And so but also like when I think bless your heart, oh, maybe they're going through something, or they weren't raised a certain way, and I'm going to pray for them. But what's interesting is like, as far as culture, and I think I was talking to Bridget at some point about this a while back, but having a daughter, I've made it a point that I don't talk about my body or my appearance a certain way in front of her. And then in turn in front of anybody. And, when I talk about why I want to exercise, it's because I want to feel healthy, or I want to feel fit, or I want to feel strong. I don't use words like fat, or unless I'm talking about actual fat, right? And then I talk about it in more of a scientific way, right? Like you don't want to have too much fat about this because it's going to take from this or whatever, and just be more practical about it than aesthetics. But also, also teaching her, or my boys as well, that, we do, the way that Tony Robbins says it, I think is like, motion evokes emotion, or something to that effect. And so, I remember like people watching me put on makeup are like, ooh, who are you doing it for? And I'm like, myself. Like I accept and I love the way I look without makeup. I also like the way I look with makeup. And I was taught that, makeup is supposed to enhance what you naturally have, not cover up and look like somebody else. And so that's my approach to it. And so anyway, so just teaching my kids in general that to look at their bodies as like a temple, and something they want to take care of, and something that is like your permanent home, and something you should be proud of, and not to be used or abused by anybody else, and even like respecting their bodies. And this goes along with what you guys talk about mostly in your podcast, is even just this culture of like like adults expecting kids to hug them or things like that, and teaching my kids that they get to choose, right? So like with my nieces and nephew, do you want to give me a hug? No, okay, you know, I love you, I'm so happy to see you, or whatever. Or like the whole Santa Claus thing, right? Like teaching them to sit on the lap of a stranger and keep secrets from their parents with it, like, anyway. So, so just teaching them, and through my example, and that's the thing, is I have to believe this too and be about it too. And I'm going to have insecurities as well, right? Especially with me, like being a performer and working in front of the camera there. And I do a lot of like Instagram lives. I'm very tempted to use a filter most of the time. And I do use it sometimes, and I try to use ones that look like myself, but, and so no judgment if you use or don't use it. And I get why people do it, and I get why people don't, but I started recently to think about like the young teenage girls and how much they're seeing and how much they're comparing themselves to what they're seeing, and how, like, especially from when I was a teenager, I remember looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, I wish like I looked like somebody in a magazine or in a movie. And, that was before social media and smartphones and all that. So I can't imagine, you know, poor, fragile things that I just want to be there for. And so if I can be an example of look, there's some wrinkles, or there's, you know, imperfections, and I'm still happy with myself, and I still deserve love, and I still can have a happy life. I want to do that. And so I'll say, when 2 years ago, I shaved my head for lots of different reasons. Mainly I wanted to like get to know myself in a different way and challenge myself and challenge my attachment to beauty and vanity and these things. And in that process, I realized, because all of a sudden my hair was like my security blanket. And so I was exposed, and I started seeing my family members reflected in my face. And it was so beautifully moving to me that, like, I may not look like so-and-so on a magazine, but I look like my aunt and my grandma, who like wiped my bum and prepared food for me, and like think about me and pray for me. And those are the kind of women I want to look like. Who cares about this person I'll never meet, who's been photoshopped and all this stuff, right? And so all of a sudden I just have it big in my heart to kind of share that, and not only to my daughter. And then I'll say with my daughter too, I hope she's not embarrassed that I share this, but all of us kind of like go through times of exploration with our image. And so if I was talking to their parents of girls around this age, I'm like, you know what, we all have an awkward phase. Let her have an awkward phase. Like, that's part of growing up, you know? And so she, like, my idea of beauty doesn't have to be modeled by her at all, you know? And there, actually, when I shaved my head, she almost wanted to also. And I did tell her, like, do you care about what people might say? Oh, she's like, no. And I'm like, yes, I am doing it. But anyway, so in closing, yeah, I just think it's really important for us as women to kind of model this confidence and love of ourselves. And we're not going to be perfect at it, and we're going to struggle with it as well. But just to kind of work on having a healthy relationship with vanity, with our body image, to hopefully be an example, not only to our children, but the children that we're around. Because I think that's what's going to stay with them more than anything else, you know?
Yeah, I love all that.
When you said women supporting women, I heard the Lady Gaga song, hey girl, we can make it easy if we lift each other. Like, that just kept playing around in my head over and over again. And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned girls that, sell themselves a little bit. And what I kept thinking is it's important not to shame them. And it's important, even if I or you might have a value of modesty, to accept that they might have had a different life experience than you. They're on their own path trying to figure themselves out. So as a woman supporting another woman, you know what I mean? Like, it's so important to be like, your eyes are beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, and to remind her, of her innate worth, because so many people want to judge. And again, like, if a woman is selling her body, do you think she needs judgment? Do you think she needs someone to continue to rail in that she has no self-worth by judging her for doing what she's doing? No. The most important thing you can do for a woman in that position is to love her and to show her her light. And even if she still wants to continue wearing whatever she wants to do, awesome. Go do you. My peace is not dependent on what you are doing, right? And so I think, you know, it's really important, like as women, to just accept and not try to make them what we all want to be ourselves. You know what I mean? But just a rose is beautiful because they're a rose. A sunflower is beautiful because they're a sunflower. A daisy is beautiful because it's a daisy. We're not trying to make daisies roses. You know what I mean? Like there are so many different forms of beauty. Yeah, no, I mean, definitely something you said that just made me think, you know, love and acceptance is so important when it comes to discussing women who sell themselves.
Yeah. And as everyone is different, and especially in those industries, not all women want to be there. Some of them, especially in trafficking, are sold into that. So oftentimes they're trying to find a way out, or they're in a part of that journey where they're numbing it with drugs, alcohol, or different things that it took them down that path. So absolutely. And they might need that one person to show them compassion or be there for them to help them get them out of that situation.
Yeah. And do you like this? Is this what you want to live? You know what I mean? And being able to be a safe place for that woman to be honest. Absolutely.
My experience has been very difficult in this matter because I grew up in a culture where, you know, the macho culture and the women don't go to the grocery store without being all fixed. Like the way I grew up, you don't go outside without fixing yourself. When I came to the United States, it was so funny. Kids had pajama days. Pajamas! You're going to school in pajamas? No, you don't do that. And why not? You know, so you come to this culture where people like, and then I go to the store and the woman is wearing these rollers in her head with flip-flops while I'm in a very tight skirt with high heels doing my shopping. Something is wrong here. Anyway, so I grew up very, very criticized. Women would look at me like up and down because, you know, I'm wearing my tight and, you know, whatever. That's my culture. That's my culture. Like people wear, you know, what is it called in Iran or whatever, they wear there's a name for this.
Burqa or something.
Yeah, same. You know, it's just different. It doesn't mean I want to sleep with you or take me. No, I grew up wearing sexy clothes because that was the women in my culture. So I come here with my culture, right? And I get my bachelor's degree in interior design and I get hired by a company and I make sure to buy slacks and a little top that is like a crop top. No, not crop. It's like a vest. I remember having an outfit with slacks and I was trying to be so professional but cute because I like it. And the young girls were like, oh, I love your outfit. Where did you buy it? Whatever. And the women, the HR are like, wow. And you know, it's funny because they hire me. That was my practice, my first job. And they gave me a project. It was $1 million commercial tenant improvement. And I had to develop the construction documents and I did it all. And when I was done, you had to take it to the city buildings for approval or disapproval. And usually you get red marks, which is disapproval. You had to fix something, you know, minor details, whatever. My plans came back without any of that. I cannot believe it myself. I was so happy. And I always express my feelings, you know, I express my feelings. And I'm so happy. Like, and I remember the director of the team was like, what do you want? A little pat on your back? I'm like, oh, that was so sad. So anyway, that was a 3 months of practice. And I remember at the end of my practice, I had to interview with the bosses again to see if they would hire me. And I made the point to go to the interview, to that last interview, dressing with the same clothes they hired me with, because I knew something was coming. And mind me, these people were a company, very religious people. And they didn't hire me because of my clothes. It wasn't even because of my professional performance. So I have lived with that in the United States, or when I got my divorce. my friends were not my friends anymore. It's like, I don't want your man. I can get my own. I what do you think of me? Like, I don't understand. So I grew up, it was very difficult for me in this country because our cultures are so different. And I didn't mean any disrespect dressing the way I dress. And I didn't do it for your men or even for you. I did it for me. I still do this for me. I'm camping and I have fake lashes for me. Nobody's watching me here. I fix them for me. Nobody cares. And I don't care either. But if I want to do it, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But it isn't for you. I like to walk around and see this, you know, and please don't take offense. And, you know, so it has been very difficult for me from the woman perspective. So I make a point to give compliments to women. And when I did sales, I used to do home improvement sales and I would go to the houses. I had to work so hard to put all my focus on the woman. I wouldn't even look at the man, you know, even though he was going to pay for the sale. I had to give all my attention. I have always have this in my mind, to go to the woman, to bow to the woman, to make sure that she feels comfortable with me, to make sure that she knows I'm not interested in her man. I had to go the extra mile. And people continue to look at me up and down. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care. And I am promoting getting old so much because nobody tells us that getting old is so awesome. Yes, my body won't let me run like it used to because it hurts. Yes, I had to get up slowly because my bones are, you know, I don't know what they're doing, but it doesn't feel the same. I get it. But my mind is like, go, Claudia, go. You can do it. You can do it. So I still have the spirit. And it's not going to be killed. I'm going to be 80 and I'm going to be so ridiculous, but I'm going to be so happy. And I'm going to be, I'm not going to apologize. I'm always going to be so close to my children and I'm going to love them. They're going to know it. I'm going to make sure that my children and my grandchildren know that I adore them. And after that, I don't give a frack about anyone else because they accept me, they love me, and that's all I need. I don't need anyone else. And you can look at me as much as you want to. I'm not going to change. I'm only going to change only what serves to my children. That's it. That's it. I am a mom. I wanted to be a mom. That's a job. And I need to qualify for that job. And my kids are my qualifiers. That's all I owe anything to. That's it. I love you girls. You're beautiful. And we need to tell each other how beautiful we are. Yeah. Every day. And tell, I love your outfit. Where did you get that? You look wonderful. What does it take? Nothing. And we're all beautiful women. We're so beautiful, all of us. Anyway, acceptance, girls. You know, be kind to each other. We're sisters. That's it.
Beautiful.
We can make it easy if we lift each other.
Yes, sister.
I love the energy.
You know what Valerie told me? Valerie showed me something. I want to say something.
Okay.
Valerie showed me something that is so impactful to me. I don't know the name. She will let us know. But she showed me a clip of something that made me think. What if you were me? What if you were me? What if you are part of me? What if I'm part of you? What if I'm a reflection of you? What if the world is just this one being that has duplicated and triplicated and multiplicated into who we are, the neighbor? So what if I'm hurting you? What if I'm loving you? What if I can see me and you? Would I hurt you? No, I would love you. I will service you. If we were to think that way. So Valerie, thank you for sharing that with me. I forgot the name, but I didn't forget the content and the impact on me. So I see a dog, a reflection of me. So I must respect that dog. I must love that dog. You know, the universe is part of me, must care for it, must take care of it. So we are all connected. We are truly, truly, truly connected. No matter what country, no matter what year.
We're all part of the same spirit.
Amen.
Then we all come from the same source.
Amen.
And so if I reject you, I reject source.
Me. Yeah.
If I shame you,
I shame me.
source.
Yep.
And by extension, I shame an experience that the part of my consciousness, which is your consciousness, which is a shared collective consciousness, will experience. So every time you shame someone or judge someone or whatever, you're really just doing that to yourself on a different.
So that was very impactful to me, to remind myself, you know, how everybody else.
When we say that that we love God and God doesn't make any mistakes and God made us, but we can hate ourselves, or like we're all brothers and sisters, but I hate my neighbor. Like
doesn't match, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you guys for having us on. I know I want to address, I know that some of my views might be a little bit more diverse, but I appreciate you guys for, you know, making space for diversity.
Of course. I'm glad that we can have these open and honest conversations. I'm going to put everyone on the spot right now. Becky, you get to answer this too. We don't ever.
I know what the question's going to be, and I don't even have an answer.
If you watch our podcast, then you might, clips of it, you might know what the question is. But we're going to go around. Whoever wants to take this question first, feel free to. So if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
I love you.
Ooh. She by far is the quickest person to ever answer that.
That's a great one.
Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind.
I would say, keep at it. Don't give up. Whatever you're going through at the moment, don't give up. And don't give them up. If it is about your children, do not give up. That's it. That's my message. Don't give up.
Love it. Becky, you want to answer this one? Mine would be, you're not alone, you are enough.
I would say keep healing. And I think it's kind of the same message, that it's not easy. A lot of times it's simple, that you just do, again, with healthy eating and exercising and learning about yourself and spirituality, whatever you take that as. It's simple things that you can do, does not make them easy things to get through. But the more you do it, the better off you'll be, and the better the world will be collectively because you did it.
True.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. And as we lead into wrap up, one more question to go around, just because we love this question and everyone handles it differently. So when it comes to adversity in your personal life, or if you're something you're struggling with, how do you handle that? And what is like your biggest motivator to keep on going?
For me, I have to be resilient, because I have 4 children. They will count on me. So I am going to be strong. I am going to deal with my issues. I am going to be there for my children. So for me, Andrea, you gave me a gift, and I still have it many years ago. And it says something that it's almost like a mother's savior, or it's their children. It's like the children grind you to earth. And I would have died many times over if it wasn't for my children, because there were many times in my life that I didn't want to live. But I saw my children, and I could never, it didn't matter that I wasn't a good mother. It didn't matter they were thinking of me, but I could never abandon my children. I could never do that. No matter what, no matter if I'm the most horrible person, I'm still gonna follow my kids and be there. So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
I had some lyrics come to my head that I'm looking at to answer that question, but there's this country song, I guess it's by Rodney Atkins, and it's called If You're Going Through Hell. I don't know if anybody's heard it, but it says,
keep on going.
Yes. If you're going through hell, keep on going. Don't slow down. If you're scared, don't show it. You might get out before the devil even knows you're there. I love that. But yeah, I'd say that for adversity or overcoming adversity, probably kind of circling back to what we were talking about is my mom's example of resilience and endurance and optimism. Because like, there's a reason, like, it's funny how we feel so defeated, but it's not the end. Like, we're still alive, you know? and that should be motivation enough to kind of find out, you know, why are we still alive and why did I go through this? And I think we can all look back at something in our lives and something that we overcame and kind of get that perspective and make sense of it. But that's something I would encourage a lot of people to do, is use yourself as motivation. Like that quote of like, you've survived 100% of the bad days you've ever had. And if you think about like climbing a mountain and it feeling so hard, but then you look back and see all the progress you've already made and how close you are to the top, I think we need to give ourselves more credit and use ourselves more as motivation and look back and know all the things that we've accomplished and to help you carry you forward to the present adversity. But yeah, I think maybe the key is just to feel connected to something bigger, because without that, there isn't, like, how do you find purpose and how do you find your mission and motivation to keep going? And so for a lot of us, it's God or service or our fellow man. And I think if you just have a bigger goal and kind of know your why, then that can carry you through anything. And I'll say, kind of wrapping up to what we were talking about, is this whole music thing, right? It's new to Valerie, it's new to me, and it's our biggest dreams, and we're definitely attached to it, and we're not going to let it go. And so we're very motivated, but I'm sure she can relate to this. But for me, it's been a roller coaster ride, and I can definitely feel like the adversary trying to pull me away from it. And I can see all the light that it's accomplished thus far and how much more I want to share. And so I think anything in life, for anyone listening and needing encouragement, if you have a worthy goal, you're gonna have to expect some adversity along the way. And your why needs to be so strong that there's no getting you away from that and accomplishing that.
I love that. Well, I love that too, because when I think about adversity, I hear the word contrast, which is like the stark difference of, like, you know, when you up contrast in a photo, you enhance the difference between light and dark, right? And that's what adversity is enhancing the difference between the light and the dark elements in your life. But when we have contrast, I almost joke, like, you know, contrast is like, you know, my cup falling and shattering on the ground, you know, and in those moments I say, something to want for, you know, because in those moments where you experience adversity, your desire for what you want to experience instead becomes clearer, stronger, and your trajectory is more sure. And so, yes, we have contracts, but it is for a deepening of our desires and a bigger oomph for making those happen, right? You know what I mean? And not only that, but I think a big part of the human experience is learning how to find joy, peace, and happiness despite external circumstances. So yeah, there's always going to be stuff outside of our control that we are going to be affected by. So what are we going to do about it? How are we going to stand firm? How are we going to be happy anyway? How are we going to find the victor story instead of the victim story? How are we going to say, oh, actually, I know this is crappy, but this is actually setting me up for this, this, and this, and this. And that actually is more character. And that actually is more strength and muscle. So those are the conclusions that I come at the end of super loud, busy, chaotic days of, wow, was I practicing having peace despite external circumstances today? And it's a practice. So you know what? Thank you, God. Thank you, universe, for giving me this practice, because I asked you for this. I asked you to give me strength. I asked you to give me power. I asked you to show me the creator that I am. And that's what you're doing. So thanks.
I love that, because a lot of times people think that when you say, I need strength in this, or I need patience in this, or I want this thing, that it's just magically going to superimpose itself in you, when really you need strength. Okay, here are 5 hard things you're going to have to go through, and you'll be strong on the other side of that, but you asked for it. And so, and people don't really realize that is the way it is. And for me, like, the idea of adversity, you almost don't know you're in it until you're out of it. And you're like, wow, that was really hard, but now I'm here. And so for me, it was just like, all right, well, we just keep going, because what's the option? And one of the lyrics, I don't even know the name of the song. It's a Christian song, but it says, if I'm not dead, you're not done. So that's kind of how I live. Like, if here we keep going, I mean, I hope I'm not dead soon. I have a lot of things to do, but like, yeah, there's things to do. And so you just keep trekking up that mountain. And some days you take really tiny baby steps, and some days you can run up it. But either way, you just got to keep doing it. And at church, they made a really good, it's actually in Frozen too, the next right thing. You just got to do the next right thing. And that could be this big or it could be this big, but you just have to keep moving in that direction and you'll be good.
I think the knowledge of somebody, I think in the church, they say that God wouldn't give us anything we cannot overcome. So when we are given these challenges and this adversity, I think it's an opportunity for growth and strength. And God is telling us, like, I had to find that in my life when I lost my children and, you know, why my marriage doesn't work and whatever. I had to think, you know, Claudia, God is telling you something and God is making you stronger. And this is going to be valuable to you someday. And it's true. It is so true. You just have to stick with it and see beyond yourself and try to be futuristic, I guess. Think about where you're going with your life. Will you have children? You know, what kind of parents you want to be? And, you know, I think about it, what kind of grandmother I want to be. You know, I have a future as well. I still have roles to fulfill. I'm still working on them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one I use all the time, is God will never give you more than you can handle. And that's literally whenever I'm like faced with adversity, I'm like, okay, what lesson are you trying to teach me? And then that's how I shift out of it and keep going. And just remembering that there's a purpose to everything, and it just is what makes you stronger. If we can give your social media handles, we'll make sure to link everything in the show notes. But again, thank you guys for having this conversation and joining our podcast, and look forward to more conversations. Wish you nothing but success. If you guys can just share your social media handles, and again, we'll make sure to link it all in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Valerie.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been so fun having this experience with you ladies. So my social media handle is Valerie Belen Music. VALERIEBELEN Music.
Thank you.
My handles on everything is Claudia Andrea TV, or Claudia Andrea TV. And thank you so much, Bridget and Becky, for everything you're doing outside of this moment. And thank you for having the space and for sharing your light with us. And this has been beautiful and heartwarming.
Same with all of you.
Thank you.
Mine is Her Soul Vacation. You can just type Her Soul Vacation and I hope I will pop up. And thank you for this opportunity. You have made me feel important. You make me feel validated. You have granted me an awesome experience with my children, my adult daughters. That is so, so valuable to me. Thank you so much for this platform. And I wish I subscribe to yours, and I will promote, because the cause is so, so important. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. And leading into that, as we wrap up, again, I know that I said it before, but just remember you often hear us talk about censorship and social media, and as independent artists and what we're all up against. So make sure, even when you're subscribing to Claudia and Valerie's music as well, and even their moms, like, share, and subscribe to all the content, and if there's merch, buy the merch. If there is a Cash App or Venmo, whatever is listed in their show notes or on their pages, make sure to support that. The content isn't free. What they're doing, they put so much work and effort in, and literally investing in themselves. So much in the culture today is backed by some big checkbooks and a satanic culture. And so again, just make sure to subscribe to everything that they're doing. If you can't give with money, give with love, and do a like, a share, and that costs nothing. Or even just telling one person, it goes a long way. And the power of one will just cause a ripple effect and allow us to create change for not only our generation, but future generations. So going into that, as I lock myself out of my phone.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Everyone has a story. Together we must rise for the children. It starts with one person. It starts with you. When you say, am I a part of the problem? When you face that mirror and start healing people, family, yourself, and holding one another accountable, and start to be present. Put down the smart devices and listen to your children, family, or friends. The world is hurting. We all have a story. You're not alone. Be bold, be you, be your own kind of beautiful. Stand tall, speak your truth, and the world will adjust. They can't take your voice. It's never too late to do what's right. Survivors, energetically, we know that this time is hard for you as the truth continues to come to light. Continue to stand in your truth. You are courageous, you are a warrior, and together we will change this. It's time. Enough is enough. Survivors, as always, you are not alone. We hear you, we see you, we stand by you, sending you love, light, and blessings. Love, Save Our Children podcast. Take your candle and go light your world.
Amen.
Amen.